Democrats are calling for the impeachment of Donald Trump again, as they've been for the entirety of his presidency. But this time, it's over a leaked phone call between Trump's legal team and the Secretary of State of Georgia. Now, yesterday, I did a segment about this on my main channel. At the time, only about 4 minutes had been released, but shortly after I recorded, they did release the full hour-long audio. And my friends, let me tell you, of course, they take Trump out of context, which is the basis by which they're saying impeach Trump. And when you actually listen to the full hour-long audio, it certainly doesn't make Trump look like a saint. If you support the guy, you're going to agree with him. If you don't, you're going to disagree with him. But it does make the Georgia Secretary of State look really, really bad. I mean, I'll just tell you this. The Trump team says we have evidence of people who changed their addresses and moved out of state and voted. And the response from the Secretary of State is they moved back. Without evidence, they moved back. The Trump team says that's not in the change of, there's a national change of address database. Well, they moved back. Okay, that's not evidence. You can't just say that. Maybe it's true, fine. Well, the Trump team says we've asked for that data. Why won't you provide it? It's one of the reasons why they were suing in the first place. Well, the left, going off of 4 minutes, that took Trump, I would say mostly out of context. I think, look, Trump said we just need to find 11,780 votes. We now know why. Trump said, look, we've got hundreds of thousands of votes. We've got 10,000 here, 10,000 here. You need to look at these that were counted multiple times. You can see it on camera. Why aren't you addressing this? But listen, we're not going to go nuts here. We just need 11,780. So we can, what Trump was basically saying was, instead of doing a big investigation and lawsuit over all of these different instances, we can just target one of them, which will get us the votes we need to win, because it's not this is how it works in court. And the left doesn't seem to get it. You can prove fraud. OK, like if you say, look, I have a video of fraud. The first thing the court's going to say is, would that change the outcome? And if you say no, they say, bye-bye. It's a waste of time. In fact, many of Trump's legal challenges have been dismissed, not his personally, but challenges brought by, other parties, because they said, if you challenge these 5,000 votes, it won't change the outcome. Have a nice day. Now, I've previously brought it as a problem. What if you've got a bunch of different instances you're suing over and all together it would? I guess you would need one big lawsuit pertaining to all of them, perhaps. And for the most part, the legal challenges have been dismissed on procedural grounds, as most of you probably know. But this is where it gets interesting. This leaked audio, apparently Trump is now filing a lawsuit against Georgia over the leaking of this audio. It does sound like the audio was leaked, in my opinion, by Brad Raffensperger. Why? Well, listen, maybe you guys don't, maybe you're not familiar, or maybe you are. But I think the average person can tell when the person who's recording the call is talking and the person who's being recorded is talking, because when Trump speaks, it clearly sounds like it's coming out of a speaker. There's quality issues. And when Raffensperger speaks, it sounds like he's in the room, or at least the quality is a lot better. That's just my opinion. Now, I've actually done a lot of audio production work. I used to do it all the time. I've done audio editing for documentaries. I have a song I released where, I didn't do any of the editing on it, but I'm very, very familiar with music mixing and editing and audio work. And it sounds like it came from Raffensperger. So Trump is suing them for releasing this, saying it was a confidential settlement discussion. They're trying to argue now that Trump has committed a crime. Experts arguing that Trump broke Georgia law, which he cannot self-pardon for. Oh, because it's a state law. Okay, sure. Look, Trump was having a discussion, and I'll put it simply. I listened to the audio, and then I was like, and there it is. We now understand the context. The other day, I said it was really weird that Trump was saying we need 11,780 votes when Brad Raffensperger says you lost by 12,790 or whatever. Why would Trump ask for an amount of votes that doesn't equal the amount they claim he lost by? Well, we now know why Trump was asking for that number. In his belief, that's what he needed to win. So that was one of the possibilities I brought up. Maybe he thinks that's the number he needs to win, no matter what the Secretary of State says. But it was also that Trump was basically saying there are 10 areas. I'll give you a hypothetical. The gist of it is you have all these areas where we could sue and get hundreds of thousands of votes. And he says this. He says, we've got hundreds of thousands here. We don't need them. We just need. So look, I'm just trying to find 11,780 votes. And there it is. Trump was pointing out There's no need to spend all this money. And that, in my opinion, sounds about normal. Well, of course, the Democrats are claiming Trump is an evil monster, and the Trump supporters are saying, wow, this makes Georgia look really bad. Let me tell you, the reason the left thinks Trump is a monster on this one is because he's trying to overturn the results of the election. That's a fact. Look, listen, Trump himself tweeted overturn. OK, now what Trump is saying is there's evidence that he can find that would allow him to win. The problem here, OK, with the left is that that's just an argument. You can say he's wrong, but he's refusing to concede. OK, so what? Democrats did something similar, not to the same degree. Trump's certainly fighting way more than Hillary Clinton did. But the Democrat activists were nuts in 2016, 2017. So what we have with Trump is an argument. You can argue that the orange man is bad, fine. But I'll tell you what's really, really bad in this phone call. I think it makes Georgia look worse. In one instance, Trump says, in the consent decree you signed, which is like a no-fault settlement, but it's consent decree. It's a specific legal term. You made changes. You made changes to, the law or whatever. It's a disgrace. And that's actually a constitutional argument as to the invalidity of the Georgia election and why the state legislature needs a special session to make a decision. I'm not saying it's the right argument. I'm just saying it's the argument. Georgia actually says we don't have a consent decree. And I face palmed when I heard this audio. You got to be kidding me, dude. Wow. He says, nope, we have a settlement agreement. And Trump says, what does it say on the paper? It says consent decree. And he goes, I don't know. I don't have it. The Republicans in Georgia are completely inept. I mean, Trump supporters think that's criminal. But anyway, all right, let's do this. I won't rant too much. Let me just show you exactly what's going on. We got a couple stories here, which I don't think you need me to read. Business Insider says Washington watchdog group calls for Trump to be impeached again over efforts to tamper with Georgia election. Tamper? He's filing a lawsuit, you crazy. I'll keep the rhetoric toned down. New York Times says, is it too late to impeach Trump again? The president showed this weekend that he still has Georgia on his mind. Trump files a lawsuit with Georgia. He's filing over a bunch of claims that he thinks, need to be addressed that would get him a victory. That's the point of the lawsuit. He's contesting the election. And then he talked to them and said, here's what I want. Here's the goal. Yeah, that's it. Well, they released it. And now here we go. Trump files 2 lawsuits after phone call with Georgia Secretary of State is released. President Trump has filed 2 lawsuits. The announcement came Sunday night on Twitter by Georgia's Republican Party Chairman David Schaefer. He says, federal lawsuit and state lawsuit against the Georgia Secretary of State. The telephone conference call secretly recorded was a confidential settlement discussion of that litigation, which is still pending. During the call released Sunday, Trump assures Raffensperger, who certified the state's results for Biden multiple times, the people of Georgia are angry, blah, blah, blah. So we get all that stuff. So Trump is now suing because the audio was leaked. This is one of the most important parts is where he says, quote, I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have because we've won the state. That's actually part of the settlement. That's normal. It's a settlement discussion. Trump is absolutely insane how the Washington Post, of course, took it out of context. And I knew they did. Trump didn't call the Georgia Secretary of State and say, we've lost. What do we do? Can you just magically give us votes? Trump said, look at this change of address database. It's 18,000 people. Look at this. People were counting ballots in the State Farm Arena with no monitors available. And when you zoom in, you can see them scan ballots 3 times. And the only thing we get from Georgia is that's not true. Well, that's not a refutation of the video. I've seen the video. You see, this is what the Democrats rely on. Low information individuals who just hear Georgia say, nope, you're lying. And they go, see, Trump was lying. They've entered this from the perspective Trump is wrong and Trump is always wrong. But Trump has his arguments, some of which are wrong. Trump talks about Dominion voting stuff. I do not believe that to be correct. I don't. And I've looked into all of this stuff. So Trump has his errors. But when Trump says you've got the national change of address database without any evidence, they just say that's not true. Those people moved back to Georgia. What do you mean they moved back to Georgia? They didn't change their address back to Georgia? So you register to vote, you move, you change your address, and then later move back and then vote? Maybe, sure. But man, you're going to have to actually provide some evidence because Trump supporters and the right actually have that list of names. Interestingly, the Georgia Secretary of State confirms dead voters. 2 of them, just 2. So not enough to really do much of anything. And Trump asks, when he says we have thousands of dead voters, Secretary of State says, well, actually, there's only 2. And then Trump goes, okay, how do you respond to that? Like, go for it. He tells his lawyer, like, say something. They confirmed their dead. How does that happen? Okay, how did dead people vote? Even if it's just 2 people. I mean, well, there you go. Thanks for confirming this. To me, that's probable cause that we need to investigate the other claims now if you've confirmed this. They say, no, that's not true about the other dead voters. Are you going to provide any evidence to this? The Trump camp says, we're asking you for the data. That's part of the request in the suit is to give us, they won't do it. So if I have personally corroborated evidence from a different state of people who have changed their addresses and are listed as voters. I have personally done this. It doesn't mean that it confirms Trump won or anything like that. Because like I said, in court, you've got to prove what you have would change the outcome. I don't know if that's the case. And, Trump supporters don't want to accept it. But what I keep saying over and over again is whether or not Trump wins will not be about the number of votes. It will be about institutional power. It is Trump versus the establishment. And these guys in Georgia are either woefully inept and really dumb, or they're malicious. Absolutely malicious. Law and Crime says, experts arguing that Trump broke Georgia law, which he cannot self-pardon for. They say, Preet Bharara says, the odds of Trump declaring a self-pardon just went up a bunch. They say this all the time. Look at this. Jed Sugarman tweets, GA 212604A1. A person commits criminal solicitation to commit election fraud when, with the intent that another person engage in a felony, he solicits, requests, commands, importunes, or otherwise attempts to cause the other person to engage in such conduct. B. If the Secretary of State or any employee willfully destroys, alters, or permits to be destroyed or altered any document described in a subsection, the Secretary of State or employee of his or her office shall be guilty of a felony. Oh, that proves it. Impeach Trump. These people are so dumb. They're so dumb, my friends. Let me explain something to you. If person A walks up to person B and says, yo, if you don't give me $1 million, I will physically harm you, a friend or family member, or I will publish embarrassing materials. My stars and garters, that is blackmail. That is blackmail. Okay, now let me explain something to you. If somebody moses on up to you and says, I, sir, have filed a lawsuit against you. The lawsuit says you owe me $1 million for you were in my house and we had an agreement, a contract, and you broke the contract. You took the $1 million. I am going to be releasing the conversations we have, which is going to embarrass and humiliate you, not blackmail. Seriously. If you're filing a lawsuit against someone seeking relief, okay, and you have a settlement discussion, it is not inducing them to commit a felony. These people are so desperate to claim Trump lost. The best example of this was yesterday that Trump is evil. I'm sorry. The best example of this yesterday is when Frank Luntz, the pollster, tweeted about this. And I just said, is there a full recording? And he was like, if you can't find it, maybe you should remove journalist from your bio. They hadn't released it. Oh, surprise, surprise. Simple question. I wasn't challenging him. I wasn't insulting him. I was just joining in a conversation. But these people are so pathetically desperate to claim that Trump committed some crime here or that it's the most damning phone call ever, that when you ask them, simply for the full recording, they say, how dare you? Somebody responded, one of these little Twitter, people said, what context could be changed? What more do you need to know? Like, Trump said it. Give me 11,000 votes. And I'm like, I need to know why he said it. Trump could have said, did you see that guy on the radio? You hear what he was saying? He said, look, here's what I need. I'm looking for 11,780 votes because that's what we have. And we have way more than that. Could you believe someone saying that? It's one of the easiest ways to take someone out of context is when they quote someone else. And it's been done to me over and over and over again. And it's been done to numerous people. So forgive me if I'm not going to sit back and say, thank you for your jump cut clip where Trump says a sentence. I don't know why he said it. Imagine if you were like, did you hear what that lunatic just said? I hate pizza. How crazy is that? Everybody, orders from Papa John. Well, not Papa John's. I won't order. No, but from Pizza Hut. You get it? You say something that someone else said, take it out of context. So let me put it simply. Claiming Trump broke the law. Okay. Trump telling them that someone else broke the law and he wants it remedied is not inducing someone to commit a felony and is not an impeachable offense. But these people live in magic fantasy land where for some reason they want to impeach Trump, even though he's supposed to be out of office in 16 days and Kamala Harris still hasn't resigned from her Senate seat. Makes you think a little bit, huh? Well, my understanding is that Joe Biden didn't resign from the Senate when he was coming in to be vice president until the 15th of January, which, would have been 5 days before inauguration. Still, many candidates resign their Senate seats well before January. I remember when this claim came out, when they were like, why isn't Kamala Harris resigning her Senate seat? She's VP elect, right? Okay, resign, go. And some people said, well, look, it's not unusual that it's the end of November, early December, that Kamala Harris is not resigning because there are many people who wait until, early mid-December before resigning. Then December came and went. And now it's in January. And many of these stories are like, well, actually, some people do wait until January. I think the fair argument is the Democrats have little power in the Senate anyway because the Republicans have the majority. So that she wants to stay in to make sure. And they're also waiting to figure out who's going to replace her. That's fine. But I will point out, when they're trying to impeach the president, Trump, why? It would take longer to impeach him and remove him, convict him, than it would to just wait the 2 weeks and let Biden be inaugurated. Unless, of course, Trump's claims in that phone call had merit. And it's going to be presented on January 6th. Now, listen, I don't think Trump's going to win. And the Trump supporters, a lot of Trump supporters, look, I browse it down to that one. I know what they're talking about. They don't seem to understand what I'm saying. I'm not saying Trump is losing by numbers. I'm not saying Trump is losing on a constitutional basis. You can make that argument, fine. I'm saying the bigger picture here, regardless of all of that, Trump is at war with the establishment. Oh, I've seen the data. I think Trump has legal arguments that could help him win should they be proven in court, or should he get a settlement like he's trying to do here. But Trump is fighting the establishment, and it is way more than just about vote count. Can Trump get a hearing in the Supreme Court? Apparently he can't. Will any of these courts hear the evidence? Apparently they won't. And so the only opportunity Trump has is the objections on January 6th, which apparently are coming. We are going to see 12 Republican senators, 140 or more Republicans in the House objecting. And they're going to go by each state. So it's going to be 2 hours per state? We've already seen a bipartisan group announce that they will block Trump. That's Mitch McConnell. I love it. You want to know what I love? I love the fact that Republicans will stand by Trump, the populist figurehead of the party. And AOC will not defect. She is a careerist who supported Nancy Pelosi in her vote for speakership the other day. Nancy Pelosi gets reelected Speaker of the House. Well, I guess they didn't want Kevin McCarthy to be Speaker, so fine. It makes sense, I suppose. I'd imagine most Republicans would vote for Perdue and Loeffler because they don't want the Democrats to control everything. And there's many of them who believe that. There's a larger faction of principled Republicans who would sacrifice the Senate and rather fight for Trump than the progressives have. The progressives hate the establishment, don't get me wrong. They don't like Joe Biden, but they're more than willing to prop up people like AOC who will support the machine and just play along with it and, benefit themselves and their careers. I want to show you a couple things. This is the transcript. Here's some of the most important stuff we can take away from this as we start to wind down the segment. Trump says, when you look at this consent decree, look, he says, I hate to imagine what's going to happen on Monday, blah, blah, blah. It's very scary to people. That consent decree is a disaster. It's a disaster. A very good lawyer who examined it said they've never seen anything like it. Secretary of State Raffensperger says harvesting is still illegal, and that settlement agreement did not change one iota. Trump says it's not a settlement agreement. It's a consent decree. It even says consent decree on it, doesn't it? It uses the term consent decree. It doesn't say settlement agreement. It's a consent decree. It's a disaster. Raffensperger says it's a settlement agreement. Trump's response, what's written on top of it? Raffensperger says, Ryan, the lawyer. The lawyer says, I don't have it in front of me, but it was not entered by the court. It is not a court order. Trump, Trump says, but Ryan, it's called a consent decree. Is that right? It's on the paper. Is that right? I don't know. I don't believe so, but I don't have it in front of me. Okay, whatever. It says, oh, I can't believe this. Amazing. Take a look at this. This is an article from November 16th. Trust Index finds Trump claims on Georgia voter signature checks is wrong. Okay, let's pull this up. We reviewed the consent decree, and it contains nothing that would prevent Georgia elections clerks from scrutinizing signatures. So I love this. Trump doesn't understand what's in it, for sure. Like I said, he's got some things wrong. But how insane is it to read this and hear from their legal counsel saying it's not a consent decree, I don't even have it? Wow. That to me is absolutely insane. Let me see if I can find this. Change of address. Or let's do this. Let's do moved. Mitchell says the number who have registered out of state after they moved from Georgia. And so they had a date when they moved from Georgia. They registered to vote out of state. And then it's like 4,500. I don't have the number right in front of me. You definitely should have that, because I'll criticize them for not having the consent decree. But at least they can cite this. Trump says, and then they came back and voted. Germany says, we've been going through each of those as well. And those numbers that we got, Ms. Mitchell was saying, they're not accurate. Everyone we've been through are people that lived in Georgia, moved to a different state, but then moved back to Georgia legitimately. And in many cases, Trump says, how many people do that? They move out and they say, hell with it. I'll move back, It doesn't sound like a very normal. You mean they moved out and what? They miss it so much they wanted to move back? Sure, Trump. Yes. Sometimes people move and sometimes people move back. However, Trump, we have documents of people changing their addresses. Why didn't they change their address back? Okay, you see the problem here? They moved back years ago. This is not like something they just did before the election. So there's something about that data. It's just not accurate. Trump says, well, I don't know. All I know is that it is certified and they moved out of Georgia and they voted. It didn't say they moved back, Cleta, did it? Mitchell says no, but I mean, we're looking at the voter registration. If you have additional records, we've been asking for that, but you haven't shared any of that with us. You just keep saying you investigated the allegations. Cleta, a lot of it you don't need to be shared. I mean, to be honest, they should share. They should share, yada, yada, yada. You get the point. Ryan Germany says, and then they go and talk about Dominion. Amazing. The response from Georgia is, they moved back. Okay, well, you need to prove that. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Trump has made an extraordinary claim, but there is an actual database proving it. I have not reviewed the data pertaining to Georgia. I have reviewed some data pertaining to Arizona, and I have been able to independently, external to the databases presented by the legal challenges that are working on behalf of Trump, I have been able to look through my own databases and confirm address changes for these people who voted. And I was like, there it is. Wow. It doesn't mean it was enough, because I looked at a handful of voters and I was able to corroborate information, confirming a lot of what we know. Now it is incumbent upon these other states to say, here's the evidence they moved back. And I'll say, you got it. No problem. But I'll tell you some of the crazy stuff I've seen. Some of these people moved due to COVID, it seems. They didn't just move back. They changed their addresses and registered in other places. And it looks like they voted twice. Now, that's what I was able to look at. As it pertains to people moving out of Georgia, the Georgia Secretary of State will need to, in my opinion, in court say, here's evidence they moved back. Because if you go to a judge and say, here's them changing their registration to a different state, then they voted. And they say, oh, it's because they moved back. Sure, you can say that. You have to prove it. If Trump has the evidence, you need to back up your claims that Trump is wrong. If Trump came out and said, I have no evidence, we just know it happened, I'd say, get out of here. And Trump is talking about Dominion, and I say, okay, yeah, I'm not having it. And I'll tell you, let me leave it with this. Why do they want to impeach Trump again? Why hasn't Kamala Harris resigned her Senate seat? I think the Democrats are aware that Trump does have a chance. They don't want to admit it. A big key point, and a lot of the things that these leftists who don't actually watch my videos keep saying is, Tim still thinks Trump can win. Trump could win in a lot of ways. 1,000,001 different ways, because we are a system of people, not machines. Like Trump could parachute down through the White House from, halo drop and then storm the White House. Who knows what he could do? Constitutionally, the objection process could theoretically win. I doubt it will. That's my opinion. But the left likes to say simply because Trump is still fighting and there's a path, it's impossible and you're crazy for thinking so. But the real reason these resistance Democrats types are saying this is because they want to demoralize. The reality is Trump has legal claims. I'd like to hear them answered for. They've not been. Now, when they say they want to impeach him and Kamala Harris won't resign, I wonder if they're hedging their bets just a little bit. Not that they think Trump is going to win, but that it's smart to always do, right? I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.